The courtroom was packed. Rows of spectators sat in intense silence. The air was thick with the weight of expectation, and the dim overhead lights buzzed softly, casting a dull glow over the polished wooden benches. At the front of the room, Judge Richard Holloway sat high on his bench, tapping his fingers impatiently on the desk before him. He was an older man, well into his 60s, with silver hair and deep lines carved into his face from years of scowling at defendants. To him, this was just another routine case, another face, another name, another person wasting his time. But what he didn't realize was that today would be different. Today, the person sitting before him wasn't just another defendant, and this day would be the one that shattered his arrogance. At the defense table, Agent Malik Carter sat calmly, his back straight, his expression unreadable. His black hair was cut short, his jaw was sharp, and his eyes were calm but intense. He was dressed in a crisp navy blue suit, his presence undeniable. But Judge Holloway didn't care to notice. To him, Malik was just another black man who had gotten himself into trouble. As the judge glanced down at the case file, he smirked and let out a chuckle. Another entitled individual who thinks the law doesn't apply to them, he mused, loud enough for everyone to hear. A few jurors shifted uncomfortably, but Malik didn't flinch. The prosecutor, a younger man in his 30s, looked tense, but remained silent. Judge Holloway leaned forward, mocking. "I assume you're here to claim you were wrongfully arrested? That this is all just a big misunderstanding?" Laughter rippled through the courtroom. But Malik didn't flinch. He didn't even break his calm demeanor. His lips curled into the slightest smile, the kind of smile someone wears when they know something no one else does. "Your Honor," the prosecutor began, but Judge Holloway interrupted. "Let's not waste the court's time. Tell me, Mr. Carter, why do you think you're special?" For the briefest second, Malik's eyes locked with Judge Holloway's, and his calm presence rattled the older man. This wasn't the typical defendant who stammered or begged. Malik was composed, a stone wall of self-assurance. Finally, Malik spoke, his voice smooth, controlled, and even. "With all due respect, Your Honor, I'd prefer to stick to facts rather than opinions." Judge Holloway scoffed, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. What he didn't realize was that Malik wasn't just any man. The tension was palpable. Then Malik reached into the inner pocket of his blazer, and the room seemed to hold its breath. The bailiff stiffened instinctively. Judge Holloway scoffed again, ready to make a comment about reckless behavior, but then Malik pulled out a small black leather case. He flipped it open slowly, deliberately. Inside the case was a golden badge, unmistakable and gleaming under the courtroom lights. Judge Holloway's face drained of color. The prosecutor's pen slipped from his fingers, clattering onto the table. Jurors leaned forward in disbelief, their eyes wide. Malik placed the badge on the table with the confidence of a man who knew he had just played the perfect hand. "My name," Malik said, his voice steady and commanding, "is Special Agent Malik Carter, United States Secret Service." The silence was deafening. The courtroom had fallen completely still. Judge Holloway's jaw clenched, his face drained of any color. The arrogance that had defined him for so long vanished, replaced with fear and panic. Malik let the moment settle before continuing. "Before we proceed, Your Honor, I think it's important to acknowledge that my arrest was not only unjustified, but also a direct violation of federal law." The judge's hands gripped the edge of his desk so tightly his knuckles turned white. He was visibly shaking. Malik didn't stop there. He reached into his bag again and pulled out a sealed government document. He slid it toward the bailiff, his eyes fixed firmly on the judge. "This," Malik said, "is an official complaint drafted by the Department of Justice. It details the numerous violations committed by the officers who arrested me, including the falsified report that ended up in this courtroom." Judge Holloway's panic was evident. He had underestimated this man, his composure, his strength, and his power. But Malik wasn't done. He straightened his blazer and looked the judge directly in the eye. "You see, Your Honor," Malik continued, his voice unwavering, "the officers who arrested me never bothered to check my credentials. They assumed that because of my skin color, I must have been doing something wrong." The prosecutor was now visibly shaken, flipping through his papers in confusion as the pieces started falling into place. But Malik wasn't finished. I find myself sitting in front of a judge who mocked me without hearing a single piece of evidence. "This isn't just about me, Your Honor," Malik said, his voice rising. "This is about a system that allows people in power to abuse their authority without consequence. And today, Judge Holloway, you questioned the wrong person." A deep silence settled over the room. Malik leaned forward slightly, his eyes burning with purpose. "I promise you, this is far from over." The prosecutor, visibly panicked, jumped to his feet. "Your Honor, in light of this new information, we request that all charges against Mr. Carter be immediately dropped." Judge Holloway's lips pressed into a thin line. He wanted to disappear into the chair, but he couldn't. He cleared his throat, his voice barely a whisper as he muttered, "Case dismissed." The gavel slammed down, but for the first time in his career, it wasn't his authority that silenced the room. It was the weight of Malik's truth. Malik gathered his things and walked towards the exit, but before stepping out, he paused. He turned his head slightly, his voice ringing clear across the room. "Next time," he said, his words slow and deliberate, "think before you laugh." And with that, he walked out, leaving behind a stunned, pale Judge Holloway, humiliated and realizing his career was over. Because after today, the world would hear about this. That's the story, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure sharing it with you all. Don't forget to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see the global reach of these stories. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories, tips, and tricks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. If you'd like to show some extra love, tap the 3 dots near the share button and send a super thanks.